PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I'd like to show you a wonderful attacking game played by Boris Spassky. The finish of this is simply genius, real genius. I wonder if you can spot it. Okay, so this was played in the latter part of Spassky's career in 1988 in a German Bundesliga game. That's the national league in Germany. So Spassky was playing black. We're going to be looking at it from black's viewpoint. And his opponent is an international master from France, Gilles Andruet. d4 from white. Knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, and bishop b4 check. So that invites an exchange of pieces. And this line from black is very solid. It's not very dynamic. And, I wonder whether Spassky was thinking, well, I'll just play solidly, perhaps I'm happy with the draw. Rook d8, so that's opposite the queen, so the queen shifts to the side, and this is a very well-known position. At the highest levels, this system was often used by black to go for a quick draw, and this, for example, was a very typical continuation, and very often we'd get an exchange of pawns here, and there'd be lots more pieces exchanged on the open C and D files. But Spassky plays knight d7, so that's a little bit different, but it doesn't really change the position too much. But Andruet decides to exchange on d5. Okay, so that introduces a little bit more tension in the position. Black can't liquidate on c4. So we have this typical, well, some people call this the Carlsbad pawn structure. You get this from, for example, a Queen's Gambit exchange variation. Bishop d3, yep, useful to control this diagonal. Knight f8. Aha, so now we can see that Spassky has perhaps got a little bit of ambition now. He's swinging the knight over to the kingside. And, well, at the moment there's no danger, but one never knows. And knight e2, that's quite a nervous reaction from Andruet, I would say. So he wants to just plug the kingside with lots of pieces and make sure he's not going to be attacked. But, well, let's see what happens. There's a threat to take on c7 rather, and so black plays c6. Knight g3. Well, it's hard to imagine black breaking through on the kingside, but let's see. Rook e8. Yeah, that's really where the rook belongs in these positions on the semi-open file here, even though at the moment there appears to be no danger, but okay, let's watch out. Queen c5. Well, to me, that looks a little bit desperate. I think Andruet is very much hoping that Spassky will exchange queens, and frankly, there's nothing wrong with that. I think the position is about equal. But Spassky shows some ambition. He rejects the queen exchange and drops the queen back. And yeah, I don't think the queen is particularly well placed on c5, so why not? Knight d2, so Andruet looking to prevent black's knight from hitting the outpost. Knight h4. Now that is a very nice spot for the knight. Looking at g2 and controlling f3 as well. b4, and finally white starts up this so-called minority attack. White looking to push through with b5, which will weaken black's pawn chain. So this is the counterplay. And Spassky prevents that for the moment with a6 and a4. So very typical position, and black has various ways to meet this strategic idea of playing b5. Bishop d7. And rook b1. So just preparing this move b5. And knight g4. Well, the knights start to look quite menacing. And you'll notice that the rook and knight combine quite well. For example, if h3, then this is already quite a dangerous sacrifice. You can even throw in another one there. And this is very typical of these kind of positions. Suddenly, black's pieces look really, really strong, all these pieces. And that queen looks really out of play. So that's why Andruet played queen c2, bringing the queen back. Yeah, looking, well, there's a threat to take here, obviously, and it might be used for defensive work on the second rank. g6 stops the threat to take on h7. And finally, b5 comes, creating a little bit of play on the queen side, weakening black's pawn structure. And as I mentioned, there are various ways of dealing with this. And one way is to exchange here and play a5. This passed pawn supported by the rook could be useful. But Spassky plays in another way. He takes on b5. And that gives the rook potential activity on the a file. And he plays h5. So this is interesting. So it looks a little bit funny to play h5 when that square is blocked by the knight. I mean, I don't think we want to move that knight away from h4. But actually, this introduces the idea of taking on g2 and then pushing on with h4. So this is quite dangerous, actually. And an exchange on c6. So you can see the point of this minority attack. Pawn on c6 is backward, potentially is weak. At the moment it's securely guarded by the bishop, but this is the point of white's play. Rook e1 from white. Well, I can understand that move because this sacrifice is so often a theme in these positions. But it's not a threat at the moment, but it could be. So that's why rook e1 was played, to support that pawn. But it seems more natural to play knight b3 to come into this square. Not that I think white is any way better here. But that feels like the right way to play. But, well, that's kind of a nervous move. He's worried about the potential sacrifice there, so he's defending the pawn. And now, even in this position, it's possible to take on g2 and play h4. That gives black very interesting attacking chances. But Spassky has spotted another idea. He played queen f6, hitting the pawn on f2. So Andruet plays knight f1, so that means the queen now defends f2. And that kind of packs the kingside. All these points are now protected by the knight. I mean, it looks like an impregnable fortress that white has built on the kingside, but watch out. Rook a3. Well, that's pretty annoying pressure, actually. Because where can that bishop move to that's safe? The queen has to keep tabs on that bishop now. It can't step back because that would break the communication here and black could take. It doesn't have any other safe squares along here. So that queen has to keep guarding that bishop, which is very annoying. So rook a3, typical of the kind of counterplay that black develops in this line. So Andruet decides, okay, he doesn't want to, well, he needs to defend against rook takes bishop and queen f2. So he plays rook e2. So he's overprotecting this pawn, but yeah, it needed it by this stage. Now, here is where I would like you to have a think, and I'm going to have a drink. What did Spassky play next? And this is where the genius comes in. This is a beautiful, beautiful idea. It's always been one of my favourite Spassky games. I have lots of favourite Spassky games, but this one, not top level chess. He's playing an international master, a good player, but not the strongest. But somehow this idea is wonderful. So black to play. What are you going to do? Cheers. C5. Wow, where did that come from? This backward pawn is cheeky enough to advance. And it can be captured by two different pieces. Well, first of all, we should say that queen takes c5, rook takes bishop. Fine, that one's clear enough. So Andruet took it with the pawn. That was a fatal mistake, as we're about to see. White is probably still okay here. I mean, it's a shocking move. Bishop b5 was necessary. And then black is better. Well, I won't go into detail, but basically black can take that pawn. But white has chances to defend still. That's the best that white has. But pawn takes pawn played. And now here is the point. That this square is now available for the knight. Hitting the bishop, which moves. And now the killer move. Queen f3. Oh, fantastic. And white resigned. Why did white resign? Well, after pawn takes queen. Knight check. King goes in the corner. Bishop h3. Just in time before that bishop is exchanged off the board. And there is no sensible defense to bishop g2 checkmate. Wow, what a finish. What an incredible finish. I mean, of course, white can prolong the game by playing this, but it's mate next move with bishop g2. That is just genius. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like it. I've seen that kind of mate before with sacrifices. But this as a prelude, that is really unusual. And to spot that, to spot the combination of these ideas is something else. So there we go. That's why I think this game of Spassky's is absolute genius.